Eddie Brock knows Venom came from space, but soon he will learn who created him. Knull, god of the void, slicer of worlds. Long ago, when light invaded his kingdom, his symbiote children betrayed him and imprisoned him on the planet Clintar, the symbiote word for cage. At last, a codex is being created, the key to Knull's freedom. He orders his Xenophages, a feral alien species that feed on symbiotes, to search every corner of the universe until they find his key. Once they free him, once he's annihilated every living planet and destroyed his symbiote offspring, he promises the Xenophages, "I will reward you with your lives." Following his commands, the feral aliens leap into portals, taking them to the far reaches of the universe in search of the Codex. Daniel, that's how Venom: The Last Dance begins. By the way, everyone, I'm Gil, the voice of OneTake, and you just heard I'm speaking to my brother Daniel. Say hello.
Hey, hello.
I know you're just having such whiplash from everything I just threw at you, all this new Venom lore. Why don't you tell me what you thought of this opening? What were your feelings coming into the movie and after these first few minutes?
Oh, man. Okay, so I think this movie was at its best when it was like a buddy cop, type movie, which is something people say. And I think I was immediately worried with the intro. Like the instant it just started with all this narration and explanation of all this ridiculous stuff about like a Thanos type guy and a key and all this stuff, I was just like, oh boy, that was my reaction.
Well, and I love that it's not narration. It is the villain just sitting, talking to no one. Well, I was going to say he looks up. He doesn't look up. The big twist at the end of the movie is when he finally looks up. Right now, he sits with his head down and he's just talking. "I am Knull. A long time ago, I was imprisoned here." He must be talking to us, because if he's speaking to his Xenophages, they must have heard this a million times before. I don't know how long he's been locked up here. So actually I was going to say the first act. A lot of this movie is pure exposition, just saying things for the benefit of the audience. Sometimes not even for the benefit of the audience, because they're saying things we've heard 10 times already. The number of times it's explained to us the threat of Knull, what Knull is, and it starts with exposition. But not only that, it's the most generic villain possible. I'm going to destroy the world, kill all living planets. Why? I don't know. But to do it, I need the Codex. And what is a Codex? It's an ancient manuscript or an official list of medicines, chemicals, etc. And now also it's the key to Clintar. Just now, on one hand, I don't actually mind this opening, because if you think about what these movies are trying to be, at least the first two, they're trying to be a fun time. This reminds me of what you'd see in a Saturday morning cartoon, like Claw, I think that was his name, Inspector Gadget's villain. You'll just cut to him sitting at his desk, talking to no one. "I'll get you next time, Inspector Gadget." I could picture this in a Saturday morning cartoon. The thing is, I remember eating a bowl of cereal, sitting on the couch, watching those cartoons. A lot of fun characters, a lot of action. You were having a good time. But this movie, there's not a lot of fun to be had. Occasionally there is. There's some humor, there's some action, but not enough for me to say, oh, it's a fun riff on Saturday morning cartoons. Oh, and the other thing is, he says to the Xenophages, he says, "I will reward you with your lives." Now, to me, that's a threat, essentially, right? Like, if you don't do this for me, I'll kill you. But he's reframing it as a carrot, which is, my reward is that you get to live. I won't kill you. But isn't that a lot like a prisoner yelling at a guard, "Let me out or I'll kill you"? It's like, right now, clearly you need us, the Xenophages, more than we need you.
I'm like, what a lax prison you're in too, right? Like, they put him in a prison, but first of all, they make sure there's a key. Like, there's no rule that you put somebody in a prison, there has to be a key. But whatever, they make sure there's a key. And then they also let him amass an army, like, while he's in a prison.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
the key, there's so many things here. The
well,
logic.
Should we save our complaints about the key for later? I'm
Yeah,
worried we're
okay.
never going to get into the recap.
Oh, well, let's start with the army. Yeah. We're going to lock you up with no hope of escape except for your army of things that eat us. The xenophages feed on symbiotes. So we're going to lock you up surrounded by beings that want to kill us, that have the ability to travel the universe at will by opening portals. All right. Well, we can continue with the recap now. And I'll tell you, when the trailer for this movie came out a few months ago, there was one part of the trailer where I was just so intrigued. One thing that intrigues me so much about the SSU, Sony's Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man, is just they so clearly want to build up their own MCU style interconnected universe, but they're so bad at it that I just love to watch how they fumble it. And in the trailer, you remember at the end of No Way Home, in the post-credit scene, Eddie Brock, he shows up at the bar in the MCU, and then he leaves. He gets sent back home from Peter Parker's spell, but he leaves a little bit of symbiote behind. In the trailer for this movie, you see, Rex grab that little piece of symbiote. These army people grab it and collect the specimen. So I'm like, wait a minute. So does that scene take place in the MCU? Are we actually going to see that in this movie? Like, they're going to tie it back in? We're about to find out how they do it. Meanwhile, in the MCU, Earth 616, Eddie Brock learns about a purple alien named Thanos from a frustrated bartender. If you watched No Way Home, you may recall that he asked about Iron Man, Hulk, and even considered the idea of visiting Spider-Man in New York before Peter Parker's spell sent him back to his own universe. You remember wrong. That's not what happened, idiot. There is no mention of Spider-Man, and it isn't Peter Parker's spell that takes Eddie Brock back to his universe. Instead, a portal opens behind him, one that appears much like the ones these Xenophages leapt into. Back in their own universe, Venom announces, "I'm so done with this multiverse." On the TV, Eddie sees a report on SFPD detective Patrick Mulligan's death, who was caught up in the battle with Carnage. Eddie is blamed for his death and is considered a fugitive. So where should they go? They decide on New York. Venom has always wanted to see the Statue of Liberty. Also, there's a judge there who got Eddie kicked out of the city, but Eddie has dirt on him, so they can blackmail him and clear his name.
Which, by the way, that never goes anywhere.
It
never mentioned again.
I'm more to say on that. As they leave, Venom tosses a coin on the table and doesn't notice that he's left a piece of himself behind with it.
Wait, what's just the last time he left a piece of himself behind, it created Carnage. Literally, it made that Carnage guy. Don't you think he'd be a little careful?
Yeah. And also, now to be clear, when Carnage got created, at least that was Woody Harrelson bit him, right? So it wasn't like Venom left it behind. So maybe he's not aware that this viral shedding is happening. And when I say is happening, I mean it happened once, doesn't happen again. And arguably it might have happened twice, because we get a very strange retcon here. So like I alluded to in my recap, they've recreated that scene, but stripped out any references to Spider-Man. He stands up and he's like, maybe I'll visit this Spider-Man guy in New York. They just cut that out, so that didn't happen. And they changed the way he vanishes. In No Way Home, he lights up, and then, yes, it happens off camera. You only hear him disappear, but you do see him light up the same way the other Peter Parkers and the villains did when they got sent back to their universes in No Way Home. So they take away the lighting up thing, and instead he gets sucked into a Xenophage portal. Who opened that portal? I mean, it seemed like it opened right when they were ready to leave. I don't know. And then my impression, like Sony wants, like they're making standalone movies, but it's almost by mistake. I think they want to make interconnected movies, but they literally just don't know how to do it. They can't wrap their head around the concept.
Wait, but isn't No Way Home is MCU, right?
Yeah.
So they're not allowed to like make it a part of that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think they want to make it a part of it, and they keep having these back and forths with Feige where he knows, look, the MCU it's on a downward spiral right now. I don't know how to save it, but I definitely know hitching ourselves to Sony is not going to fix it. So I think that there's this push-pull with like Kevin Feige's like says to Amy Pascal, fine, he can be in No Way Home, but only in the post-credits, and we're kicking him out. Well, can he? What if he leaves a piece of his symbiote behind? All right, sure, whatever, I don't care. Now, this is my question if I could speak to the people who made this movie. When Venom leaves a piece of himself behind in the bar, and in this movie that happens in the Sony universe, is Sony hoping we're going to forget he left a piece in the MCU? And they're trying to gaslight us. They're showing us this. So when we remember the piece that got left behind, we're only going to remember what happened in this movie that it got left behind in the Sony universe. We're going to forget about the MCU stuff. I really think they're hoping we'll forget. Because it feels a lot like what happened with Morbius. So everyone's debating. We know Morbius, Venom take place in the same universe. Which universe is that? Is it the MCU? Is it an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man universe? In the Morbius trailer, they couldn't decide. They said, how about it's all of them? So you see the Oscorp building from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man in the background. You see the Daily Bugle logo from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. And then my absolute favorite one, you see somebody spray painted Spider-Man on a wall and wrote murderer over it. This came out after Far From Home. So the clear implication is that they're talking about Tom Holland's Spider-Man. He was accused of murdering Mysterio. So someone's calling him a murderer. But the thing I love is that the picture of Spider-Man they use is the Tobey Maguire suit. But specifically the Tobey Maguire suit that was featured as a skin in the PS4 game. So they've cross-referenced now 4 different Spider-Men in this bizarre amalgamation. And then when you get to the movie, all of those references are cut out. And they put a new one in. Vulture shows up. So when Peter Parker's spell sent everyone back home, for some reason it took Vulture and sent him to Venom's home. And somehow he has surmised, I think Spider-Man has something to do with this. I should go team up with a vampire, Morbius. I have no reason. I just got to this universe. I hear about this guy who's got nothing to do with me. He's got nothing to do with Spider-Man. Somehow I know Spider-Man has to do with what happened. Anyway, so I love the retcons. And I'm not saying I'm 100% anti-retcon. Iron Man has some little, like in the MCU, they have them sometimes, right? Like Iron Man, does it take place in 2008 or 2009? But only Sony has the gall to just reshoot a scene and just hope we forget how it went the first time. So anyway, I just really enjoyed all that. That's the thing I was most looking forward to in this movie, was just seeing how they handle it. And it happens in the first, I think, 7 minutes. It also feels like, I guarantee you there was a draft of this script where Venom decides to go to New York because he heard about Spider-Man. Okay, he's back in his universe. Maybe I should go find the Spider-Man of my world. And then I bet they cut that out, so we need some other excuse for him to go to New York. All right, he has got a judge he wants to blackmail. Because doesn't that feel so random? It goes nowhere.
Well, everything in this movie is random, such as, I'm going to steal your thunder on this, the Codex. The Codex, the thing that unleashes this guy, this like God thing. Oh, the Codex is something that is created when a symbiote and host, where the host dies. Okay, so this guy's in a jail, and a key will be created when that happens.
Well, I mean, if the host dies, then their life force combines with the symbiotes, which creates a codex. Who decided on that logic? Like, what physical, is that just like a fundamental law of physics? Like the acceleration of gravity, and well, yeah, when a host dies, the life force combines with the symbiote, it creates a codex. So like, did that law of physics exist before they created the prison? And then it was like, I didn't know that a key would just manifest.
This reminds me randomly of, because we talked about Dracula last week. So there was like one reference they made in Bram Stoker's Dracula where you see these like blue rings of fire. And apparently they appear on certain nights over buried treasure. And I always wonder, like, So when something like that happens, that means there's like a law in the universe, right? That like fire will appear above treasure. And then it's like, how does the universe determine what's treasure? Like one man's trash is another man's treasure. Like if I bury some trash, is that treasure?
It's see, at least in the MCU, like Thor's hammer will only he can only lift it if he's worthy. We actually see his father, a god, whisper to the hammer and say, only let him lift you once only one who is worthy can lift you. Someone's creating these rules. The Codex thing makes absolutely no sense. Which again, I think it's okay if this were a Deadpool type movie. And I'm going to compare to Deadpool a few times because I think it's a good barometer, because I think this movie's trying to do similar things as Deadpool, which is be irreverent in the superhero genre. And comparing to Deadpool, a movie that does it so much better, will help us to see why it doesn't work as well here.
Quick comparison to like Venom 1, because I didn't realize, so I finally watched Venom 1 and 2 recently. I didn't know they were supposed to be super irreverent. And so I was like, well, I guess TBD what they're supposed to be. But I was like very confused while watching the first movie. Like halfway through, like I was jotting down like all these notes of everything that was wrong with the movie. And I was like, it feels like it's written by like a high schooler. And then like I sort of realized, I was like, oh, it's irreverent. Okay. But it still didn't feel that way. Like there was just so much dumb stuff happening that sometimes felt like it was being taken seriously, which is the same thing happening in this movie.
There are going to be moments in this movie that you can never convince me these moments are not meant to be serious. These are moments, or put it another way, there are moments in this movie where they're definitely not trying to have fun. They're trying to be serious. And if they think anybody's going to take that scene seriously, I want to have whatever they're smoking. So when Venom gets back to their universe, I'm done with this multiverse stuff. He hasn't been dealing with multiverse stuff. They went to a bar for a few hours and then he came back. So this is a fourth wall break. He's talking about the multiverse stuff we've been going through. And I guarantee you this was not in the original script. They saw Deadpool Wolverine, or at least maybe they wrote this before that movie came out, or they were exposed to it, but they felt in the zeitgeist people are sick of the multiverse stuff. So they put this in as a fourth wall break. And it just doesn't work because Venom doesn't break the fourth wall. Maybe in comics somewhere he has or does, but in these movies he hasn't. So it feels like it comes out of nowhere. And maybe I would have laughed if I didn't already see this joke, 3 months ago in Deadpool, where it was done much better. The only laugh I've had so far in the movie at this point would be sort of a meta laugh at Sony's mishandling of all the interconnectedness. Before leaving town, Eddie finds a way to satiate Venom's hunger by finding some bad guys, a gang that deals in fighting dogs. But not for long, because they'll soon find that it's a tough job when you don't have a head, because Venom eats their heads. And though they haven't noticed it yet, a Xenophage has arrived on Earth. So there's some humor I start to enjoy at this point. It's always fun to see that unexpected power dynamic when bad guys are approaching the nondescript guy who has great power they're unaware of. They're picking on him. Though there are parts in this movie where I feel like they wrote jokes that were first draft jokes that they planned on coming back to later and sort of punching up, and they just never bothered to do that. Because here's one that is kind of funny, but when you break it down, it just doesn't make sense. So Eddie is warning these punks, I have a dark side that's likely to rip your head off and feed it to your asshole. And then Venom says, no, feed it to me. It's funny, but that's not a thing people say. They say, shove it up your blank. But they changed it to feed it because they thought it was funny for Venom to chime in and actually take the joke seriously. But no, don't stick it into his rectum. I could eat that head. And so it was kind of funny, but it was just an awkward sort of joke. There was another funny one I liked when Eddie says to the gangster, what would your mother think of this? Is my mother's dead. And Venom says, you made it awkward, Eddie. And I did find like that genre of joke is the one that most worked for me in this movie. Anytime Venom takes things seriously when he shouldn't, or gets weirdly sentimental. That stuff is hilarious.
That was, I mean, I'm laughing. I'm laughing on your retelling of it.
There is one moment we'll get to later that I cracked. I actually didn't hear many other people in the theater laughing, but Alun and I really cracked up. It was the funniest part of the movie, and maybe my favorite part of all 3 Venom movies. So be excited for that.
So the other thing in this scene, I was relieved when they turned those bad guys into like real jerks. Because look, obviously, you know, caged fighting dogs is horrible. Really bad thing. I don't know that they deserve to have their heads bitten off. But, you know, it's kind of like a Han Solo shot first. Is that the thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Han shot first, yeah.
They got threatening. I mean, they were going to kill Eddie. So
yeah.
I feel okay that Venom ate their heads.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people will say, as soon as you come after a puppy, you've cried. That's even worse than killing a person, is what I think a lot of people would say. Another thing I like during the fight scene is Venom's doing all the work, so Eddie's just kind of chilling. Like, he'll sometimes just pop out. He's hanging upside down while beating people up. I thought that was pretty funny, and I was looking forward to seeing more of that. But for the next hour, there won't be any fight scenes, except for one kind of. And we don't, like, that's a fun dynamic. You could do a lot with that. If this was just a nonstop action, fun movie, and you have this thing where Venom's fighting, but Eddie's just popping out, chilling, but you don't really see it again. It was an interesting choice they made. A shadowy government type figure sees Eddie on a surveillance camera. They've tracked him down. So he calls for General Rex Strickland to bring him in. They head to the bar where they pick up the piece of symbiote Venom left behind, viral shedding, and they pick up the bartender himself, which won't come back until the post-credits. I don't know why. Doesn't matter.
Also, okay, 2 things.
Yeah.
Shadowy government guy, I think he appears again. That whole thing never goes anywhere.
Nope.
He doesn't matter. And I did keep wondering during the movie, I was like, does this guy matter? Like, who is this? And then the other thing, I mean, they make Strickland a villain from the beginning because, I mean, this like innocent bartender guy, they like forcefully take. But then I think later in the movie, like, I'm not really supposed to think of Strickland as like that bad of a guy, or maybe he goes through a redemption arc. I don't know. But from the beginning, I was like, this guy's evil. Like, I don't know.
No, they definitely set him up as a villain. And I do think you're not supposed to like him for most of the movie. And then there's a small redemption toward the end. I think this movie continues a trend from Marvel, which is that the army are all bad guys. Even though the things they're saying, if you really break it down, you're like, well, I don't know. I actually kind of agree with that. Like in WandaVision, they have Vision, who is more powerful than a nuclear bomb, is one of the most destructive forces on Earth. And the army's like, we got to contain this, make sure nothing bad happens with this. And Wanda's like, give him to me so I can bury him, where anybody could come unbury him and steal him. And I'm like, I don't know. This army guy's making a lot of sense to me. And she's imprisoning a whole town, but we're supposed to feel bad for her.
Well, it was Agatha all along.
Yes. Still waiting to hear what was her all along. But I have it on good authority. It was Agatha. Not just some along. All along. But yeah, we'll get to some parts in this movie where I'm like, this Rex Strickland guy, he makes a solid argument, and there is a counter argument, and it makes absolutely no sense, but we'll get to it. Cut to Dr. Teddy Payne, the scientist scarred on one side of her body, and those scars run deep. At night, she's haunted by the memory, her and her brother running for cover in a thunderstorm, how they were holding hands when she got struck by lightning, and the current passed to him. He died that night. But his dream lives on in her. He always wanted to be a NASA scientist, and now she studies symbiotes at Area 55, the secret base under Area 51, which is being decommissioned. Working with her is Sadie Christmas. She loves Christmas. She even wears a Christmas pin in July. Today's a great day for them because they brought in Patrick Mulligan, who spent a brief time bonded with the symbiote that has since left him for dead. But they save him, bonding him with another symbiote. Now the scientists can actually speak to one of these aliens. Why are they coming here? Because they're looking for a safe haven. from Knull. There's some more awkward stuff here. With the reference to Patrick Mulligan, his symbiote left him for dead. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. What symbiote?
Okay, so then I went back and I figured this out. So in Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, at the end of the movie, it seems that he's been killed. I think Shriek was her name. She killed him. But then we cut back to Mulligan and his eyes light up. So the implication is that he didn't die. He bonded with some symbiote that we never see. But then since then, they've unbonded. The symbiote left him for dead. And now they're bonding him with a different symbiote. Awkward storytelling. Also, a lot of... So we had exposition in the opening scene of the villain just talking to us and just telling us who I am, what's going on. I think you and I kind of chuckled to each other in the theater because every single line of dialogue delivered is for our benefit, and it's stuff that none of these characters would ever actually say. And it's the classic dynamic. The scientists want to study the thing. The army wants to destroy it. So this is the kind of exchange you'll get. You have Rex Strickland, the army guy, and you have the scientists. Hello, Strickland. You hate symbiotes, don't you? Yes, remember, it's my job to contain them and you study them. I think symbiotes are our friends. Well, as you know, I do not think they are our friends, and I think it's bad that you think that. So they're decommissioning Area 51. Yeah, but no one knows about us down here. Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100 feet subsurface, undetectable to any human or non-human. My brother's greatest ambition was to work with Area 51, doing what I do, but now I'm doing it. I'm like, some of these things are just said apropos of nothing. It was just like, how do we give this to the audience? Just have them say it. Like, why is he explaining to her, this is a place she's worked presumably for years, and I don't know, in case you forgot, we're 100 feet below the surface. Yeah, I know. Undetectable to any human. I know. I helped build the place. Undetectable to any human or non-human. Because you know there's aliens out there. Yeah, I know. That's the whole thing of Area 55. It's studying aliens. By the way, my brother's greatest ambition was to do this. Yeah, I know that. Why are you telling me that?
Also, okay, the lightning lady... So she has her flashback where her brother's talking about how he wants to be a scientist and all this stuff, right? And then he dies. And then we see that she's a scientist. She wakes up, she's got like a telescope, all this stuff. She's in the car, and then she looks at a photo of her brother and goes, it should have been you. We know. You already hit us over the head with this.
Well, I think they were worried. They were worried we didn't get it. That's why they have her say it again to Strickland.
But also... who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Her backstory does not matter.
Yeah. This movie's attempt at character development is just... You can't just have a tragic backstory and then leave it at that. You also need to give us something. I need to see that she's feeling, I don't know, the tragedy of her brother. Not just one throwaway line of, it should have been you. I need you to be a character that I even want to pay attention to begin with. Like some amount of personality. And their idea of personality is, isn't it quirky? She has a Christmas pin on her jacket. And then nothing else. Strickland even says, everybody on this side of the building is weird. Not really. The only weird thing is she has that Christmas pin. Other than that, as far as I can tell, these are the most, less than normal. They're nothing. They're the definition of NPC.
Okay. Also, this lightning lady, what is her character supposed to be? Because later on, we have the scene where Strickland's, like, all of the people Strickland is with get massacred and killed by the aliens. And she doesn't care, and he gets mad. Like, she doesn't care at all. She's just like, did you get a sample? Okay, so she's like, what? Her character, at that point, I'm like, okay, she's this, like, cold, psychopathic, all she cares about is the science. She doesn't care about people or life. Is that angle going to go somewhere? Is she going to become like a villain? No, because it's actually the other scientist lady who betrays everybody by releasing the symbiotes. But that also was to protect the humans anyway. So it doesn't there's just none of these themes or threads or characters go anywhere.
Yeah, Rex comes off as the bad guy, and then he's the one who gets to have the redemption arc at the end. Whereas this lady, she's ready to throw everything away. She's ready to kill all of us. Because later, I jump ahead a little bit. When Rex finds out that if Knull gets the Codex, everybody dies. And he also finds out that we can easily destroy the Codex by killing Eddie or Venom. And Dr. Payne is very against that. We've barely even had a chance to study this thing, and you want to kill it. Well, first off, Venom is just one symbiote. You have plenty of others you can study. But you refuse to let this one go to save the universe, not just humanity, but the entire universe of he said, I'm going to destroy every living planet. Her argument to him is this: science is sacrifice. Okay, maybe to some degree, yes. But if you're dead, you don't even gain the knowledge of science from losing everything. So that's just sacrifice. It's not science is sacrifice.
But also, I mean, going with her cold psychopathic thread, maybe if that's there, they could kill Eddie. They could kill Eddie and not Venom. She doesn't bring up that possibility. Oh, okay, I know what you're going to say, though. But a symbiote can't survive without a host. Well, no, I mean, apparently they can in this lab indefinitely.
Yeah, they'll say they're dying. And I'm like, well, they're not, though. They seem fine. If you want, like, it's actually funny that we're looking at this character right after our Dracula episode, because in that movie, you had Van Helsing, who has a little bit of Dr. Payne in him. The way that he is he's so fascinated by vampires and Dracula to a point where saving people is almost secondary. He ends up in a little bit of this amoral territory, but he is such a fun, competent character. You immediately love him and you want to watch him. That's what you need for a character like this. They have to be something. So if you want to see it done well, go check out 1992's Dracula. Another counterexample would be the show Monarch, the one that takes place in the Monsterverse. I have a lot of issues with that show, but one thing I actually thought they did really well, they took this classic dynamic. The scientists want to study Godzilla, and of course, the army wants to destroy him. But there's a couple of things that elevate it. Number one, you really can feel the scientists' passion. You're with them before they meet Godzilla. So by the time they find him, you're a little bit on their side. It is exciting. They've finally made this discovery. And on the army side, they aren't all just stereotypical generic characters. One of the main characters, Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's son, he's on the military side. He doesn't understand the scientist's point of view exactly, but he's in love with one of them, and he starts to empathize with her passion. And then he ends up stuck in the middle between his loyalties to the military and his loyalties to her and the scientists. And it ends up becoming an interesting dynamic. Instead of the stereotypical military is wrong and evil, they just want to destroy everything, even though they have a really solid point here. The universe is on the line versus the scientists. Science is sacrifice. So you could say, I can already hear the counter argument. The movie's just for fun. Okay, but when we're not with Eddie or Venom, when we're with the scientists, it's not fun. It's not even trying to be fun.
Come on, there's Christmas.
That's true. Everybody here's a weirdo. It's boring and it's cliched. And, studying the symbiotes, that could be cool. I mean, you and me are the target demographic for that, or the target audience. Anytime you tell me we've got an alien behind glass, we're going to speak to it, see what we can learn, that could be fascinating. But when they talk to the symbiotes, we don't learn anything we don't already know.
Oh my God. Yeah, we have to suffer through like a 5-minute scene where this symbiote explains the exact same thing we heard at the beginning of the movie, except to be honest, kind of explains it in a more confusing way that's like harder to hear.
Yeah. Also, anytime Patrick Mulligan was in human form, but it was the symbiote voice, and he's like, he's coming to destroy the world. It just was so goofy looking.
It was like, what it reminded me of was
Men in Black?
the thing with Men in Black.
Yeah, with the cockroach alien.
Yeah.
That was funny, though. It was just awkward. And yeah, I think the problem they're trying to solve is something that isn't really a problem, which is that we find out about something at one point, and we need all of the characters to know about it. So we have to show how each character learns about Knull. So we learn about Knull, Eddie has to learn about Knull, and then we have to see how Rex, army guy, learns about Knull. So we have to listen to this backstory about 7 times in the movie. And you just don't know why you're hearing it.
I forgot that Venom also explains it to Eddie. Okay, wait, so I have a question. What is the way, how do you establish that everybody knows what's going on without us suffering through it repeatedly?
I mean, you could just have, okay, so take one example. The fact that you have to kill either Eddie or Venom to destroy the Codex. You have a fight scene where Rex is shooting at them. He's like, what are you doing? If one of you dies, the Codex is destroyed. But just one line that establishes he already knows. Because you can fill in the blanks. They've got the alien, you know they're interrogating him, and they will pick up this information. Something like that.
Yeah, but I would be so confused because I'd wonder, like, but how does he know about the Codex?
What did that conversation look like exactly?
Also, why did she become a scientist? Like, what's her motivation?
Yeah. I have to know. But she's such a fascinating character because she has a scar.
I don't think I noticed the scar.
You see it on her neck, and it's on her arm too. I don't recall if you see that, but I know the first time we meet her, she's laying in bed, and you see it kind of going under her shirt here. Venom hitches a ride on the side of an airplane, which is very uncomfortable for Eddie. How does Tom Cruise do this? So he transforms fully, which draws the attention of that Xenophage. They toss him into the airplane's engine, and Venom turns into a parachute so they can land safely in the Nevada desert. Not far, that Xenophage heals up, attaches all its parts back together. Venom tells Eddie why that thing is after them. If Eddie dies, Venom can bring him back to life, but that would combine their life forces into a codex, which I don't know if you knew this, Daniel, but that is a key to Knull's freedom. It's a good thing Eddie's never died. Only he did, 2 movies ago, when he got stabbed by Riot. Now the Xenophage found them because Venom fully transformed. As long as he doesn't do that again, she can't track them. So Venom can pop out like a tentacle, he can stick his head out of Eddie, but anytime Venom takes over fully, they appear on the Xenophage's radar.
Which, this will happen throughout the movie, but that doesn't feel like a big deal to me. I mean, very often, Venom is doing so much stuff, like fighting all these enemies, without him being in his full form. It was never clear to me that it matters for him to be in that form.
There are no stakes in this movie. So number one, the big stakes are just the ones we've seen a million times. They just bounce off of us. They don't move you at all, which is, I'm going to destroy the universe. I just don't believe you. And then when you get down to the ground level of what's at stake here, it's like, oh my God, if you fully transform, they can find us. Oh man. But I can still use my powers and you can still turn into a parachute. Yeah. Oh, okay. And if we fully transform, it's done. It's gonna come and kill us immediately. Well, no, as long as I turn back within a couple minutes, we'll be fine. They won't be able to see us. Oh. Okay. What's the problem exactly? They find a nearby horse, which Venom quickly turns into a Venom horse, and they're off again.
And we get some music.
What was the music there? I forget.
Don't Stop Me Now.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, there were a few really soundtrack moments of I know that song. A few fun. This is when the movie's having fun. When it's Eddie and Venom hanging out. When they first land in the desert and Eddie's ranting about how upset he is, Venom sticks his head out and he's kind of got a hand on Eddie's shoulder. And he's he's kind of sniffing around like a dog. That was pretty funny. When Venom tells Eddie about Knull and the Xenophages, Eddie asks, about this god who created him. What's his name? And Venom's like, he doesn't want to say it, so he's just kind of mumbling. Eddie's like, huh? Knull. Sure. It's when Venom is being sort of childlike, because you're not saying his name, you're just sort of murmuring. So why even say anything at that point? As if you're going to trick Eddie. Eddie will be satisfied. Okay, I didn't hear a word you said, but I'll stop asking. And then as if they say the name too loud, Knull's going to hear them or something. That's a joke. Again, Venom being childlike or taking things too seriously. A joke I never tired of in this movie.
You made it awkward. I'm still laughing at that joke.
That was a great one. I also thought it was funny that Eddie forgot that he died. He's like, oh, well, good thing I never died. He's like, yes, except that one time. And the way Venom's sort of reveling in it. Like, he could have just said, no, you did die. Instead, he's playing along and he wants it to be a surprise twist. Yeah. Except that one time. And then, of course, when they see the horse, nice horsey. This is also where they explain the codex. We already talked about the codex logic. But yeah, if Eddie dies, the codex manifests.
This frustrates me, though, is like there were so many funny moments in this movie. Like they could have just done more of that.
Yeah. Like at the end of the movie, there's going to be a montage of all of Eddie and Venom's memories together. And it feels almost random, the scenes they picked. I was like, are these the best memories they had? And it did make me wish they had more memories and had more of an adventure. Like there's going to be a point in this movie where they kind of have a lull, like the middle of the adventure where it's like, boy, we've come a long way. And I'm like, not really. You were in the desert and now you're in Vegas. There wasn't much of an adventure. There was not enough of an adventure to earn this quiet moment because it feels like the whole movie's been a quiet moment. Nothing's happening. Now, I don't know if you know this, Daniel. Jumping off an airplane is the kind of thing that draws attention. In no time, Strickland and his army track Eddie down. They separate him from Venom, and one of Strickland's soldiers pulls a gun. In their hand-to-hand struggle, Eddie defends himself. He shoots her in the neck and watches her lifeless body sink to the bottom of a river. By hitching a ride on a fish and a frog, Venom gets to Eddie and fully transforms, drawing in the Xenophage. As it arrives, they morph back into human form, disappearing from its radar. But the presence of this monster creates the distraction they need to escape Strickland's grasp. It's a fun movie. Murdering this lady in cold blood.
Yeah, it's so anachronistic. Like it does feel brutal. He's in hand-to-hand combat and kills somebody. But then I'm also like, but wait, like they do kill people all the time. Okay, but I guess this time they're like killing somebody who maybe is not bad, but like she's working for this guy who they're kind of making us think he's evil initially. Like it's just too muddled, but even if it is supposed to be like, oh man, this is like a really bad thing, then it doesn't fit in this movie because they're like trying to have fun and stuff.
Yeah, this is one of those moments I referred to earlier. This was not meant to be funny. This was meant to be a dark moment. And afterward, Eddie will look at his hands. My God, I killed someone. And then he'll sort of promptly forget about that. In the first movie, they definitely made a point of we're not going to kill cops. We're not going to kill people fighting on what we deem to be the side of good. So this is definitely crossing a line for Eddie. But this movie does not have the gravitas to deal with the psychological impact of killing someone. And usually it's cartoonish. Venom bites someone's head off. This is Eddie taking a gun, shooting a woman in the neck, and then watching her body bleed out, watching her die. That's not fun. And this movie doesn't deal with it. And if they wanted to, they couldn't deal with it.
And it was a brutal scene too. Is like they were trying to kill him in hand-to-hand combat too. Like it was very brutal all around. But the moment of him like looking down at his hands, like, oh my God, what have I done? It reminds me of a film that pulled that off exceptionally well, which is our Halloween sketch. You should go back and watch Gil's Halloween retrospective, in which I turn into Michael Myers. Wait, I'm the one.
Yeah.
We both turned into Michael Myers.
Well, one turns into Jason Voorhees, but you have to say you turned into a Michael Myers-like figure.
Okay.
From a copyright standpoint.
Anyway, I turn into a Michael Myers type figure. I kill several people. And then at the end, I look down at my hands and I'm like, I've committed fratricide. Fratricide.
And I'm like, stop saying fratricide.
See, that was a film that handled it well.
Yeah. I think you acted the hell out of that scene. And I think I wrote the hell out of that scene, allowing you to pull that off.
I'm always grateful for the opportunities you've given me.
It's also, All right, going back to Eddie murdering this person. I mean, he killed her in self-defense, no question. But if you're trying to have this heavy moment, and then it immediately cuts to Venom combining with a fish, and then turning into a frog, and I'm like, this is funny. And what is the word you use? Anachronistic.
Yeah.
Fantastic word. I can't beat that. There's also another scene here. I didn't even include it in my recap, but we cut back to the scientist talking to the symbiote again. The one he seeks is not here. Well, who does he seek? The black one. He has the codex. I'm like, we know. We just saw the monster trying to get the codex. So again, it feels like even when you're having a little bit of fun, the movie will slam on the brakes, and I have to go back to Dr. Payne and Christmas.
I do like when they refer to the symbiotes just by color, like the black one. It's like when Venom creates like Carnage, and he's like, "Oh no, it's a red one. We're screwed."
Yeah, yeah, that was funny. I mean, we didn't really talk about you talked a little bit about your thoughts on the first two. I never got to a point where I loved these movies, but I will say, one, I saw a couple years after it came out. Two, I actually did go and see in theaters, and I had a good time with it. If you think about it, the movie was trying to have fun beginning to end. There were a couple of moments of emotion, and I think there is one emotional moment we'll get to that does work for me in this movie. Occasionally, it works in these movies when you're focused on Eddie, because he's the closest thing we have to an actual character. But when you try to give me emotion for one of these scientists, I don't care at all. But also think about going back to Venom 2. That movie's trying to have fun the whole way through. The villain is Woody Harrelson having a great time. Who's the villain in this movie? The most generic villain we've ever seen, who's not even in the movie for more than a couple of minutes. He sends a monster that is just a feral creature. Of course, not going to... So you have like this creature, and then you have kind of a gray area scientist military people compared to Woody Harrelson having a great time. I think it creates a stark contrast between these movies.
Like, I don't get it. Like, it's a company. A company is making this movie. Like, companies have processes. You don't have a basic checklist of like, oh, it's a superhero movie. Like, do we have an interesting villain? Like, check or no check? Like
you were upset with me before we started recording that I don't have a checklist for this, which would be like, Daniel, start recording. Gil, start recording. Hit this button. But I like to believe if we were about to invest, I think $120 million was the budget, I would have a checklist. There's another moment I didn't mention. Here's another moment where I believe they are trying to be real serious and heavy. Once the scientists find out that the world's going to end, Knull's going to kill everyone, Christmas asks some other random scientist, have you spoken to your family recently?
So cringe.
Yeah. It's just, we're not on that level where that's going to land for anyone in the audience. Yeah.
Oh, Christmas.
Wandering the desert, Eddie comes across Martin and his family, who are obsessed with aliens. Specifically, Martin is obsessed. He's here to see Area 51 before it's completely wiped away in its decommissioning. Eddie and Venom hitch a ride with this kind family, and in their trailer, Martin leads a sing-along of David Bowie's Space Oddity. Now, so apparently while they were shooting, this family kind of wandered on set, and they were like, do you want to be in this movie? Not really, of course, but that's kind of what it felt like. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I think I know why they're in the movie. Eddie's ex-girlfriend is no longer in this series, right? She was in 1 and 2. She has no place in this movie. So they need somebody else to be in danger, someone else for them to protect. So there's stakes. So they added this family so they can wander into the climax later and Eddie has to save them. And so they reverse engineered them into the plot. And I don't know, like, why is... I always forget how to pronounce his name, Rhys Ifans, but the guy who plays Lizard in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which was another confusing thing for this movie, which is you've got two actors that have played prominent characters in other MCU or Marvel movies. And there's all this talk of the multiverse. So you're like, wait, is Lizard in this? And the answer is no. He's playing Martin. And then you also have, who's it, Dr. Pangborn? The guy from Doctor Strange. No, I think I'm mixing up characters. But the guy decides to kill all wizards who abuse their power. He's Rex Strickland. But anyway, you've got this alien family, and I don't know what they were going for, because they're presented as this fun, wacky family. But the only thing that's wacky about them is that he's really interested in aliens, and the fact that they're on the road driving to Area 51 on extraterrestrial highway. But it's all said in such a calm manner. He's like, hey, we're interested in aliens. Like, the guy's only quirk is that sometimes he'll say man at the end of a sentence. You ever seen an alien, man? And that's about it. We end up spending way more time with his family than I expected to, because we'll cut back to them occasionally, even when Eddie's not there. And like, there's just this joke of he's here to see aliens, and he doesn't notice a Xenophage right behind him. That happens a couple of times. Yeah. Also,
he's a vegetarian. That's some characterization.
They give Venom a plate, and he's like, no, and he throws it away. Another example of a joke that feels like it was written into the first draft, and they were like, we'll punch that up later. So when they meet Eddie, the daughter of the family goes, this guy is so one of those killer hitchhikers from My Favorite Murder podcast. And doesn't it feel like they were intending to fill in the blank later, like what podcast she's going to say? Because when I'm like, oh, this is kind of like from Breaking Bad. Oh, this is like from my favorite TV show. Which TV show?
This is from like insert most recently relevant podcast here.
Exactly. But I'm thankful that they were in the movie, because it led me to one of my new favorite YouTube channels. There's a lot of YouTube channels out there that will teach you to pronounce words. And it will just be like a 10-second video where the word is written on screen, and it'll be like, the way to pronounce this word is blank. And it'll say it very slowly. And I was like, Reese Ifans, if I'm saying that right. Probably not. I found a YouTube video, and I want to play for you how they said it.
Reisel fans.
Oh, is this one of those channels where they purposely mispronounce things?
I've never come across a channel like that. But that video is from like 14 years ago, and they've been doing them all this time. It's just a ton of videos that horribly mispronounce words, and that just really cracked me up.
I remember I found a video like years ago, the German word Schadenfreude, but the video goes Scuden fruity. Scuden fruity.
It's probably the same channel. I'll link to it. I think it's Pronunciation Manual or something like that.
Are we going to get copyright claimed for playing the audio from another video?
Actually, I didn't even think of that. Maybe, okay, that might happen. So we'll
bleep it out.
I'll just say it myself, and then we'll insert that. This will be the magic of editing. Let me just play it again so I can hear it. Okay, it goes like, Raisel Fan. Raisel Fans. When they're in the van and they're singing Space Oddity, I remember this feeling in the movie theater of like, I like the song. Like I'm a fan of that song, but I was like, we're halfway through the movie. What is going on? Like, why are we watching this family? But I will say the scene gave me, this is that moment I was talking about earlier. I cracked up. Even when I was putting my notes together and I thought of this moment, I laughed so hard just thinking about it. But as they're singing, Venom says to Eddie forlornly, sometimes I think we would have been happier with a life like this. The idea that he's been sitting there contemplating, like, maybe we should raise a family, hang up the symbiote. And like, what would that even look like? And that's when I looked back and realized, like, every joke I laughed at was of this genre. Even in the second Venom, one of my favorite moments is when Venom and Eddie fight, so he leaves Eddie and he goes to a club and he's having a great time. He's like, I don't need Eddie. And then outside, he just collapses on the ground and he's like, I miss you, Eddie. Actually, speaking of killing people, he kills a bunch of innocent people in that movie, but I think Eddie's not aware of it. But in order to survive, Venom needs a host. So he keeps grabbing other people, and because he only achieves symbiosis with Eddie, when he latches onto other people, they can last for like an hour, then they die. So he goes to another host, and then they die, and he goes to another one.
Wait, you're saying that symbiotes can only achieve symbiosis with certain people?
Yeah, that's out the window at the end of this movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, as the plot of this movie was going nowhere, I started to think about, there was a rumored plot a few months ago, and to me, it was a fake leak. Everyone said, this is a leak of what Venom's all about. And it wasn't just a synopsis, it was the full plot from beginning to end. And to me, it sounded awesome. Like basically, through Venom's hive mind knowledge of the multiverse, he finds out that in every universe, Peter Parker ultimately becomes Spider-Man and kills Venom. So Venom's like, I don't want that to happen to us. We have to go find the Peter Parker of our world and kill him. But when they find him, he's like a 10-year-old kid. So he feels bad. And so they kidnap him. And then I think he has like an allergic, like a deathly allergic reaction to a spider or something. It almost sounds like like an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or something. It's like a reverse Terminator 2 where the good guy has to kill the kid. I never really thought that was going to turn out to be real, but during this Space Oddity scene, when Venom was getting contemplative, so was I. I was like, it would have been a better movie. Soon, they arrive in the city of second chances, Las Vegas. Where to now? Eddie surmises they'll have to steal a car, but Venom has a better idea. He's seen Rain Man, and in his infinite wisdom as a celestial being, working the system at a casino is easy. He'll win them all the money they need. Inside, he promptly loses their last $20 to a slot machine. But as luck would have it, for some reason, in Vegas now, at this very casino, at a nearby slot machine at this very moment, is Mrs. Chen. And she's been winning big. So she invites them up to her penthouse suite.
I was dying at like, oh yeah, okay, Venom's gonna figure out a way to like make a bunch of money at this casino. Nope. He just goes to the slot machine.
Yeah, and like Mrs. Chen just randomly being there does feel like the kind of joke that might have worked in Deadpool, where it's nonstop, just insane, ridiculous stuff happening. But here, where it's like, my God, I just killed someone. Oh my God, Miss Chen.
Wait, which also that never comes back, right? Like Eddie's like scarred for 10 seconds.
Yeah, no, that's gone. He's nowhere near as scarred as Dr. Payne. You know, the pathos of that character. Meanwhile, Rex has picked up on CCTV footage that Eddie's at this casino in Vegas, and now Eddie is in big trouble because Rex has made sure they've reconstituted the Six. A sinister Six. Not really. We'll discuss what the Six actually is in a bit. And he's taken control of the Imperium program. Oh, they're in big trouble now. The Six is coming. The Imperium program. He requests permission to take over the Imperium program, and the shadowy governmental guy grants permission. And in Vegas, Venom decides to transform so he can dance with Mrs. Chen, thereby drawing the attention of the Xenophage. When it arrives, they morph human again, so it leaves. But then, the Six arrives. Soldiers with slightly better equipment than the previous soldiers. That's what the Six is. They're easily able to subdue Eddie, separate him from Venom, and they capture the symbiote. Yeah, a lot of people were confused because this had to be rewrites because it feels like this. Because Rex is like, first off, when you hear reconstitute the Six, that definitely brings to mind of some weird symbiote alien stuff, right? Like when I'm getting the Avengers together, they don't say, reconstitute the Avengers. They say assemble the Avengers.
Let's reconstitute the project team from that last
Right.
consulting engagement.
We're going to reconstitute next week for another podcast. And then like, oh my God, the Imperium. I think the Imperium is just what we've been seeing. It's these scientists and people that study symbiotes. That's the Imperium, I guess. Very awkward, very clumsy. And like the fact that it's 6, doesn't it feel like they wanted to have the Sinister Six in this? And then Kevin Feige was like, I can't, look, you've eaten Venom. You've eaten Morbius. You're eating Kraven, and I can't use them in the MCU. I can't let you have 3 more. I'm sorry. I can't do it.
Yeah, Alun even turned to us in the theater and asked if this was going to be the Sinister Six. Now, fortunately, I didn't know what the Sinister Six was, so I wasn't thinking that. Yeah, but now I know.
To be fair, these guys did seem pretty sinister. And also, before people say it in the comments, I know that Sony owns the rights to all these villains. So I doubt they need permission from Feige, but maybe they do. You know, the deal that they have to kind of share Spider-Man, who knows what else goes into that. This was around the time where I noticed you watched Venom 1 and 2 recently, but was Eddie this kind of, he seems, like they make a joke of how hungover he is at the beginning of the movie, but he seems to never recover from that. In the rest of the movie, he seems like half comatose. Like when they steal a tuxedo off this guy so they can get past the casino dress code, he notices the guy's peeing on his foot and he's wearing Crocs. So he's peeing on his own, like, exposed toes. And Eddie, who's being urinated on, just goes, oh man, that sucks. And doesn't move.
You know, Eddie's it just occurs to me, like, Eddie's, like, barely a character in this movie. Like, in the first 2 movies, like, Eddie actually does a bunch of stuff. Eddie's, like, is, like, comatose this whole movie.
Yeah, I think without, like, the thing that was driving him was, I want to get back with my ex-girlfriend. I can't remember. Were they engaged when they broke up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay. Maybe that was a big motivator for him. And it feels like they just didn't know what to do with him here. And he's just down in the dumps the whole movie. Which you can have a character who's down in the dumps, I guess. But it doesn't make for a very fun movie if that's what we're going for.
And he had a thing, right? He was going to work on getting to New York so he could blackmail a judge to clear his name. Which, totally reasonable plan, by the way. Like, people... Of course, you just blackmail a judge, and it doesn't matter that you've been all over the TV as a wanted criminal. It'll be fine.
Right. You are now cleared. You know? And another just awkward attempt at humor, where after they steal the tux, Venom is like, you look great. You could get voted People's Sexiest Man of the Year. And then Eddie says, I've won Sexy Man awards before. Okay. Obviously, Eddie Brock has never won such an award. This is another fourth wall break where maybe Tom Hardy could win an award like that. But again, this breaking of the fourth wall, you know what it feels like? Do you remember in Deadpool when you've got the main Deadpool, breaks the fourth wall all the time? And then you have, I think they called him Nice Pool, like the nice version. And he's like, I can break the fourth wall too. And then he looks at the screen and just goes, The Proposal. He just names a movie he was in. It's just a feeble attempt at breaking the fourth wall. That's what it feels like whenever Eddie or Venom try to do it. And it's delivered just without any sense of humor. It's just so flatly stated. I've won Sexy Man awards before, and I looked into it. And it was basically Tom Hardy's son makes fun of him all the time. You know, you're not Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds won Sexiest Man Alive. And then Tom Hardy told the director, Kelly Marcel, about it, and she put it in the movie. And I'm like, it's not funny to us. Maybe it's funny to Tom Hardy and his son, and maybe it's funny to you. I didn't think it was funny. But there was one part I remember here. I saw you laugh. You can't deny it. After they get the tux, Venom's like, we're so money and we know it.
I loved that. It is a reference to one of our favorite movies, Swingers. Yeah, you're so money and you don't even know it.
Baby, you are so money and you don't even know it.
So they're so money and they do know it. Swingers is definitely one of my favorite comedies of all time. And it's got Jon Favreau in it, right?
Yeah.
And Jon Favreau directed Iron Man, plays Happy in the Iron Man movies, so he's connected into all this.
Man, what a career Jon Favreau's had.
I know,
Insane.
seriously. He's not just like mainstream success. He's also had like critical successes too. That movie Chef, which I never actually saw, but I hear it's great. The dancing scene where Venom and Mrs. Chen are dancing, I hated this scene. And I can already hear people getting mad at me for saying that. Because, oh, really? So it's not funny when the superhero dances, huh? I was in the theater for Deadpool Wolverine, and I saw you laughing at that. And it reminded me of a recent viral tweet where somebody said, basically, oh, so you all think it's funny when Deadpool dances to Bye Bye Bye, but when She-Hulk twerks at the end of an episode, that's not funny, huh? Interesting. So I'm not even going to get into that. But I'll get into the Deadpool versus Venom. Why was the Deadpool one funny? So here's what I submit to you. A character spontaneously dancing when it's inappropriate, not in and of itself funny. But if they start dancing because they're having a great time slaughtering TVA agents, using Wolverine's bones, in a gory R-rated scene which takes place in the context of an MCU movie, and its character is known for breaking the fourth wall, and often does revel in this kind of carnage, I submit to you, that is funny. All right.
I mean, the Venom dancing thing, it was just completely random. Like, just like everything else in the movie, just completely random.
I also don't understand why, in order to dance, he has to fully transform. He even says, like, I want to dance. And he's like, no, the Xenophage will find us. Can't they dance? Can't he like stick his tentacles out? Like earlier in the movie, he forces Eddie to make a drink. Can't he make him dance? Why is it assumed he has to fully transform? Like, Eddie could have negotiated with him. Like, how about I'll do a little bit of dancing and you can kind of stick out of my back and you can do some dancing. Again, it doesn't even matter though, because the Xenophage comes to them, they turn human again, and then the Xenophage leaves. But then when the army grabs, or when the Six grabs Venom and Eddie and flies away, the Xenophage follows them. So the logic is inconsistent.
I turned to you in the theater. I was so mad. I said, they keep doing this thing where they show us the world from the perspective of the Xenophage. And like, yeah, basically everything's grayed out except for the Codex. Like, all he cares about is the Codex. And yet somehow he's following them.
The family of weirdos arrive at Area 51 and sneak inside to poke around. Eddie wakes up in a cell across from Patrick Mulligan and meets his green symbiote half before Rex arrives. He tells Payne and Christmas to go home. He's running the Imperium now, and it's time to kill Eddie to destroy the Codex. Why he had to wait for Eddie to wake up to kill him, I don't know, but he shoots him in the chest just before Venom reveals that he temporarily bonded with Christmas to get down here to Eddie, and now they recombine.
Okay. The only character trait Christmas has is she likes Christmas. It's her only character trait. Whereas they've been putting this work into developing this other character, the Lightning woman. Why not have her do this thing where she decides to bond with Venom?
I think they wanted it to be a big reveal at the end of the movie when she transforms. They even like when there's a big climax coming where symbiotes keep combining with scientists, but instead of her just combining, she grabs one in a vial like, I'm saving this for later, as if we care that it's this buildup, and then reveal it's a lightning-based symbiote. But the crazy thing is this one has hair, has like long hair, if I remember correctly.
Oh, these symbiotes all looked really dumb at the end of the movie. Like, just the way they like looked so much like the specific scientists or whatever they took over with the hair, and it just looks so stupid.
Yeah, it's kind of dumb, but there was at least a morbid curiosity of we're seeing some different symbiote designs and different powers and voices. There was at least some fun in that, which I wasn't feeling in a lot of the rest of the movie. Eddie and Venom recombine. Eddie's life is saved. And of course, with Venom fully transformed, the Xenophage arrives again. Mulligan's symbiote protects Venom and gets swallowed by the monster in the process. But all he did was slow it down. Venom runs and tells Christmas to release the symbiotes. She does, and they start combining with scientists to create a small team to fight alongside Venom. Outside, the disappointed father, Martin, tells his kids, there are no aliens here. Just before Venom and the other symbiotes break out of the building to keep the Codex out of the Xenophage's hands, the father sees all this, and specifically when the Xenophage eats a fire-based symbiote, he yells, "Mother f***," which I didn't think you could say in a PG-13 movie. I specifically read, you can say the F word once, maybe twice, but MF, which I'm going to bleep, don't worry. I didn't think that was allowed. So they're breaking new ground in the Venom movie. I wanted to mention, by the way, as I was saying all this, when they mention the 6, one explanation I've seen online is that the 6 refers to these other symbiotes, but that doesn't make sense for a couple of reasons. One, if you look at the vials that contain the symbiotes, there's like 8 of them. One of them's empty, but that could be Mulligan's or it could be Venom's. And also, Mulligan or Rex did not want to release these symbiotes. He wants to destroy them, and he doesn't release them. Venom asks Christmas to do it. So when he says, reconstitute the 6, it wouldn't make sense for him to be referring to the symbiotes. Also, a little correction, Daniel. You said that Christmas's only trait is that she loves Christmas, but that's actually debatable because when Rex points out the Christmas pin, she goes, "My mother made this for me." So it might just be that she's wearing it because her mother made it, which means her only trait is one that's common to a lot of people in the world, which is that they appreciate their mother and her gifts. So she's even more generic than you thought. And she has a really nice pair of sneakers. I don't know if you noticed that. I don't know if they're technically sneakers. I'm not a shoe expert. But early in the movie, she changes her shoes. Like she takes off her comfort shoes, puts them in her locker, and puts on her work shoes. And the camera lingers on her shoes. And I was like, what is this? It comes back later. I had to watch it a second time to find it.
This is like a Better Call Saul importance of detail moment.
All right, so you didn't agree with me here, but I did find it kind of fun seeing some new symbiote designs. But it also reeks, which that's got to be the name of a symbiote, right? Reek, Venom. It reeks of setup for future movies. Tom Hardy's already said that he's done playing Venom. But clearly, when you get to the post-credits, they're setting up Knull for more movies. Clearly, Sony wants to keep making symbiote-based movies. But the problem is, okay, you've set up these colorful, different symbiotes with different powers. But important also is the host. And you need to have, we've already ranted a bunch about how none of these characters had any personality. But just pointing out a counterexample in a movie where this worked. John Wick 4. That was meant to be sort of a closing chapter for John Wick. And there were any number of characters in that movie that instantly had so much character to them. They're just fun to watch. But on top of that, they also have character arcs of their own. They want their own things. They have their own goals that sometimes align with John. Sometimes they conflict. But Akira, the concierge for the Osaka Continental, that guy's daughter, Kane, the blind fighter, Mr. Nobody, the guy with the dog, the tracker. I would watch spin-offs about any of them, and I think soon we will be watching spin-offs of at least some of them. This movie, I didn't find myself saying that for any of the characters. Except for that horse, maybe.
Or the frog.
Or the frog, yeah. Oh, they should make a Venom video game where it's all about leaping from I could so easily picture a Claymates type game for the Super Nintendo where you're Venom and you hop from one creature to another and turn it into sort of a symbiote version of that creature. Okay, the shoes. So earlier in the movie, we lingered on Christmas's shoes. Here's where it's blink or you'll miss it. When Venom and all the other symbiotes burst out of the building, you see Venom is wearing those shoes. And he goes, "Best shoes ever!" The symbiotes fight.
millions, $200 million, you said?
I think 120. The plus marketing, from what I understand, marketing, you have to essentially double the budget or at least increase it by like 30%. So probably that would round it out to like 200 at least.
I mean, come on. Couldn't have a better script?
I guarantee you the actress came in with those shoes one day and they were like, those have to go in the movie.
This is like Francis Ford Coppola style, like theater games on set, improvisation. And they just kept coming back to those shoes and they were like, these shoes are working for us.
Yeah.
Like, I like the vibes we're getting from these shoes.
It's what James Gunn warned about, that when you write the script, you spend months on it. I don't know if that's true in this case. Typically, you spend a long time on the script.
Do you?
By the time you're shooting, you're bored of the material. So anytime somebody improvises at all, it's fresh and it's fun compared to the boring stuff that you've rehearsed and read a million times. But you have to be careful about that because you have to remember, for the audience, it's going to be fresh. You have to trust your original instincts. That stuff you wrote months ago was good. With this movie, again, I'm not sure. But so you have to be careful about this just random improvising. And I don't know that this was improvised. It's just the feeling I get.
I would love to be like a fly on the wall. Like, I actually hate that phrase. I'm going to strike that from the record. But I would love to just see how this movie got made. And in general, how these movies get made is it's like, did they actually just spend like a week on this script? Like, and then there were some like committees that had to adjust things because certain things didn't get approved. But like, I just cannot imagine that this is a creative work that like somebody put a lot of effort into.
Yeah, and I just don't get it because Sony is trying. Well, again, I was going to say they're trying so hard. I haven't seen evidence of that.
That's a lot of money. They spent a lot of money on this thing.
They are trying to create this interconnected SSU. Everything is flopping. The only thing that's been working for them is Venom. And this is the final chapter. You're about to lose Tom Hardy. Even the people who don't like the movies, they'll say, I kind of enjoyed Tom Hardy's performance. You're about to lose the one element of your entire cinematic universe that's kind of working. And this is how you decide to go out. This was your chance to set something up and get people excited for the future. The movie's not flopping, but it's not a smash hit. I think it's going to make its money back. But I predict we're never going to see Knull again. I think this universe is dying soon. I think they're going to go to Kevin Feige and said, we gave you Spider-Man, kind of, you just take it all back.
Not with a bang, but with a whimper.
The symbiotes fight the Xenophage, and Rex, uncaring for those symbiotes, shoots him with a bomb. The monster lives, but one of the symbiotes and its host both die. The explosion threatens to collapse a tower, which Martin and his family happen to be on. Thankfully, Eddie and his good friend Venom are there to save them. A few of the other symbiotes lend a tentacle too. Eddie hands the family off to Payne so she can drive them to safety. Aliens suck, Martin shouts before leaving. The Xenophage, meanwhile, fully healed already from Rex's rocket, phones home for reinforcements. Why did it wait until now? Why did it not simply bring an army the moment it found the Codex? Mystery for another time. For now, a portal opens and another Xenophage steps out of it. Now there are two.
Wait a second. 1 second. At the beginning of the movie, he's got an army of Xenophages that he is sending throughout the universe to find the Codex. One of them found the Codex. What are the rest of them doing the rest of the movie? They're scouring the rest of the... Why aren't they just all on Earth?
This is what I think. This Xenophage, he's like, this is my big shot at a big promotion. If I can just catch the Codex myself... And he was trying to do it himself, and I think now he's like, okay, I need help. I have to admit it.
And also in this whole scene, when can't Venom just go back into regular form?
No. Okay, that's no longer relevant. It's now a big fight. The Xenophages are in the battle. In fact, Eddie is in human form at this point. But then, by fully transforming, Eddie and Venom draw the Xenophages to a contained area where Rex's helicopters can fire at them without mercy. Of course, the bullets and the explosions are all wasted. because the Xenophages survive, no problem. Soon, one of them is about to eat Eddie until Martin blows it up. The head of the beast looks up at him. Martin apologizes and runs off. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's, a little humor there, because he's like, I killed this alien. I'm sorry. Don't attack me. I think that's the last we see of him. Rex is severely wounded. The Xenophages are eating symbiotes left and right. More of their kind are arriving. It's like Avengers Endgame where all the portals open, except it's bad guys coming out. Things are dire. I really would have liked to have seen her, Venom says. He knows that his dreams of meeting Lady Liberty are fading fast. He knows those things will just keep coming. There's only one way out of this. Venom leaves Eddie. He draws the Xenophages to him. Area 51 was decommissioned under showers of acid. Venom nods at the machines, and Rex knows what to do. He turns it on, and it turns out acid works as well on symbiotes and Xenophages as it does on buildings. Venom and the Xenophages melt. Also, Payne finally becomes a lightning-based symbiote and saves Christmas. And Knull goes, "Ah!" Okay, I mentioned there was one single emotional moment that worked for me in this movie. When Tom Hardy, Eddie and Venom are in the car in the middle of the battle, Eddie's badly hurt, and that's when Venom's like, I would have liked to meet her. And Eddie's like, who? Lady Liberty. Oh yeah, well, we're going. Just as soon as we get out of here. And it was like, it was the of mice and men thing of like, we're going to build a farm. That's going to be beautiful. And they're not going to build a farm. And if they did, it wouldn't be beautiful. And, so it was like a nice, sad moment of like Eddie trying to be a good friend to the end and promise Venom things are going to work out, even though he knows they aren't. But I was also thinking to myself, what a miserable adventure. Eddie is uncharismatic because he's sad. He had to kill someone. And he's lonely. And it's not fun. Like, Venom is fun when he's interacting with other people. And there's dynamic things. I was going to say dynamic things are happening. More succinctly, I can just say things are happening. You're not just wandering through a desert. It was also kind of cool when Venom, when he lures in the Xenophages, he kind of grows bigger and bigger and they get stuck in his goo. I don't know. That was kind of cool. But yeah. What did you think, Daniel? The big climax.
Yeah.
It's like, I already said there's not really any stakes in this movie. I mean, there are to some extent because you got Eddie and Venom. Venom's going to die, but it's a sacrifice. And it's like a sacrifice for what? Who are we saving? It's the vague idea of saving the universe, but without his ex-girlfriend there. I forget her name. Do you remember her name? Venom. Let's see here. Without characters we actually have spent some time with and like know and care about. Anne Weying. There's no person I can point to and be like, they saved their life. Martin and his family. That's the closest you get.
It just felt so contrived that Venom had to kill himself. Like there just didn't feel like there were any stakes. Like it just didn't. I don't know. In the final showdown, like I just didn't really even get it. I was like, they're after the Codex. Is like, I don't know. Like, well, I don't know. Like they could just run away. Or I know you disagreed with this, but it's like earlier they showed that when they just switched forms, the Xenophage ran away. I couldn't get that out of my head. Like,
no, I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
I was just pointing out that they did actually transform to human, and it wasn't working here. They were still fighting. That's inconsistent with other parts of the movie. I mean, this whole movie reeks of reverse engineering. It doesn't feel like characters that are driving a plot forward in a realistic, organic way. It feels like it's the last movie. We need a sacrifice. But why would Venom ever kill himself to stop Knull from getting a key? He has to be the key. That's the only way we can make this make sense. And I use the phrase "make sense" very loosely. Also, I really don't. Venom's not dead. They have a hive mind. This is my theory. They're going to be able to bring him back because of the hive mind. His consciousness lives on. And so I bet he'll be reborn at some point. And of course, if they offer Tom Hardy enough money, he'll come back. Maybe in, if they ever do like the big crossover, Avengers, Secret Wars, maybe finally Feige will be like, all right, he can show up. But I am writing the script, or I'm going to get someone to write the script. I don't want anybody who worked on those 3 movies is immediately disqualified from writing any lines of dialogue for our movie. In the aftermath of the battle, Eddie wakes up to only one voice in his head, his own. An army official tells him to keep quiet about everything that happened with him and the symbiotes. And if you do tell anybody about this, you'll spend the rest of your life in a cold, dark hole. Eddie starts a new life in New York City as he reflects back on what turned out to be a pretty great year with a pretty great friend. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not, because the drinks bring back all the memories. And then you get a montage as Eddie stares at Lady Liberty and promises not to forget. Credits. Post-credits. On Clintar, as he so often does, Knull villainously monologues to no one. Your champion has fallen. The planets will be mine. The king in black is awake. I will kill your world. Everyone will burn. Then finally he looks up directly into the camera. And this is where Sony reveals their new strategy. They're going to yell at us and tell us what to do. Knull looks at the camera and says, "You will watch." I'm like, I don't know if I will. And yelling at me, as my parents learned the hard way, is not a way to get me to do what you want. Post credits number 2. Remember when they kidnapped the bartender? When Rex, he took the little piece of symbiote, but he also took the bartender? The bartender wakes up, stumbles out of a cave, sees the destroyed Area 51, and wanders off. Because I guess, during all the chaos, they forgot about this prisoner, and now he's free because it all got destroyed. So the King in Black is back. The King in Black was a major comic event a few years ago where a bunch of heroes, Avengers, X-Men, Spider-Man, they all teamed up to stop an invasion by Knull and the symbiotes. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I bet Sony wanted to do a big MCU team up. The King in Black. It's going to be X-Men, Spider-Man, multiversal battle against Knull. Okay, if that doesn't work, we're going to do something just as good. We're going to team up all of our characters. Morbius, Madam Web, Kraven. They're going to take on Knull. I don't think it's going to happen. I just can't see it. But you will watch. Well, here we are at the end. Venom: The Last Dance. There was a dance. The movie delivered exactly as it promised. Do you have any other thoughts, Daniel?
No, I think we should just look back on this exciting journey we've been on with Venom.
Can you say one good thing about the movie? It ended.
Yeah.
It was only 90 minutes long.
I liked Venom.
I wish there was more of him in the movie. Or I wish he had more to do.
And no, that's it.
What were you going to say?
I was going to make a joke saying, I really like the way they fleshed out the Lightning scientist character.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Lady Lightning and Mrs. Christmas.
Or not Mrs. Christmas. Mrs. appreciates her mother.
That's right. Rolls off the tongue. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this journey. Thank you for watching. And see you on the next One Take.
We are OneTake. We are.
Oh, yeah. We are One Take.
One Take.
We're going to have to work on that. Daniel left already, but I feel like I need to point out one more thing I forgot to mention, which is the post-credits scene effectively undoes the whole movie. The whole sacrifice Venom made to destroy the Codex so Knull can't get out. Well, in the post-credits, he says, I'm back, and I'm going to destroy everything. So it sort of implies he's able to get out anyway. Now, maybe if it's just he's a supervillain, right? He's always got a plan B. This didn't work out. He's back to work trying to figure out another way. But at least the way it's presented feels like I've got a pretty solid lead on a way out. Maybe it was a little inappropriate to put that at the end of the movie. You know, big sacrifice. I've saved everybody. It would be like Avengers Endgame. Spoilers for Avengers Endgame. Tony Stark dies. One of the saddest moments in the MCU. It would be like if he died, he saved everybody, and then you immediately cut to a post-credits of, by the way, Thanos is still alive. Nothing's been achieved here. So, odd choice. I get why they did it. They desperately want to set up a future that, like I said, I don't think is going to happen. But there had to be a better way to do it. Had to be.